Committed to equipping you to hone your media skills better to stand out from the crowd as a go-to expert in your field. Each week, Rich Bontrager interviews top leaders, influencers, authors, speakers, podcasters, and media professionals about how to leverage media best to help you shine brighter on camera and stage as a go-to expert. Now, here's your host, The Trigger, Rich Bontrager.
Welcome back to Rock the Stage. We are live streaming on multiple channels here once again. Help you shine on camera and shine on stage to elevate you and your brand authority. That's the brand's promise of Rock the Stage Media and Rock the Stage Show. Hello, I'm Rich Bontrager, The Trigger, welcoming you back for another great evening of conversation, media training, discussion, and we've got a hot one for you tonight. You don't want to go anywhere. Let me ask you, are you a public speaker? Are you someone who's doing a podcast? Are you doing streaming content like I do very often? Have you seen a shift in the crowd, the audience? Have you felt a shift in the force that they're expecting more of you? They're wanting something different from you. That's what we're going to talk about tonight, because there is a shift in the audience right now. It's impacting events, speakers, leaders, influencers, and how to respond to what they want from us. Chat box will be open tonight. As always, you can add your comments, your questions, and join in with me and our guests as we get into this. But before we launch into this, we do want to stop and say thank you to Audavita Studios for being our sponsor and making Rock the Stage possible each and every week. Audavita Studios has an amazing setup to help you with your audio needs. Audavita's experienced teams, paired with their state-of-the-art remote recording process, brings your message to life faster and stronger to your market. They work with you to produce your audiobooks, your podcast series, and distribute it widely throughout the marketplace. For more information, to learn more about the team of Audavita and how they can help you out, simply visit audavita.com. And again, they're going to take this show and turn it into an audio podcast, and it will be streaming on multiple audio podcasts as well. But tonight we are going to get into this authentic, the audience shift. They're craving, they're wanting more authenticity from us as speakers, as leaders, as influencers, as we leverage media. Tonight, I am thrilled I have Sandra Dee Robinson back once again, Charisma on Camera. Sandra supports brilliant leaders to shine in personal communication, corporate presentation, on camera and media training, speaking mastery, stage presentation, and even slide creation as well. She's an actress, and her years of Hollywood television acting experience, as well as her personal brand coaching, help you level up your personal presence on camera and off. And she helps you deliver and shine brighter to knock it out of the ballpark. Welcome back, Sandra Dee Robinson.
Hey, I'm getting used to this. I'm getting used to like hanging out here with you. It's cool. Hi.
And Jan's letting us know it's start time. It's Wednesday night, 7:00. It's start time. Here we go, everybody. Sandra Dee back with us, and we are going to officially bestow you with the most frequent appeared guests now on the show. You are now the frequent flyer on Rock the Stage.
Great. Do I get a gold card or money back? Anything?
You get free access. You're going to get free access, and you always bring great stuff. It's always a fun conversation, and we're here to help people out. And again, you do things similar but different, and we really mirror each other very well.
We do. And it's so interesting because, I think that if we were competing for clients, some people would look at that and go, well, you teach on camera and he teaches on camera, so therefore you guys shouldn't be talking to each other. I'm like, no, that's such a poverty mindset. I think that the two of us can help more people in sync, and sharing our stages, so to speak, whether it's virtual or real or whatever, which we've done. I mean, you've run my live events and you've been on them as well. So we've shared my stage and I get to share yours. And so that's kind of what I think it should be like,
Well, and again, that's where the no competition, the complimentary attitude is a big part of this discussion as well, because as the audience shifts, as we're seeing, and this is really, it was beginning to happen pre-pandemic, but pandemic brought us in closer through the camera lens. We all were home. People didn't like it at first, and they realized we got to see each other in our home with our dogs, with our family. We got to see your DVDs in the back wall, and the intimacy barrier opened up.
Yeah.
And now people don't want to go back to the status quo the way it was. So let's start there. How much do you think was already coming in? How much do you think this is a new explosion?
I'm so glad that you asked me to talk about this topic because it seems so timely. You know, I've had a few, and one Hall of Fame speaker actually have this conversation unsolicited with me, saying that he and a major team member that he has had gone to several conferences within the last couple of weeks, and he said, "I see this trend." Now I'll get back to that. It was a trend that they both said, "This is appalling. This is horrible." And I think back on what they described, and I think back on how I started speaking. So when I fell into speaking, and I really did fall into it. Somebody said, "Can you speak for an hour? Can you sell into a 3-day, a 3-day retreat event kind of thing?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." I had no idea what I was speaking on. I was like, "Sure, I can do that." And I ran off and found the first person that I thought would be a great coach for me, and I hired them. And I remember her saying, how expensive she was, and I kind of swallowed, and I was like, really? But it was worth it. When you get a good coach that sets you up well, it was worth it. And that's what actually started my speaking. At the time, there were a lot of people that were, you speak on my stage, I'll speak on yours. Kind of like I said that you and I were doing, but it was different. It was all about selling from the stage.
Yes.
It was all about, you sell, I get a piece of what you sell, so you sell more than you even have sold before, so that I make more money. And there was something very salacious about it, and that was all I knew. That's kind of how I fell into it, and so I got used to that. I taught people how to do the clothes, and all of that stuff, and I made some money at it, but it always felt a little bit wrong,
Yeah.
because the second that I started really traveling around to different states and spending time on stages with other people, it became really obvious to me, Rich, who was being trained by what school. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, totally know that, especially how the broadcasting. If you lived in the upper Midwest and you're, hi, welcome to Z105, great to have you. It was Brown Institute, and you all knew it was Brown Institute, and they cranked them out. Same in the speaking world. It's happened there as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's happened when I started first teaching people on camera. I was getting a lot of clients from a very popular TV hosting school. Let's just leave it at that. And they were all coming in with the same programming. None of them had any personality. You wouldn't say, as we're talking about authenticity, none of them were even brave enough to show any element of who they actually were, because they were so afraid to vary from what had been their choreography. This is how you do it. Don't vary from this. This is the blueprint, right? We've heard that. This is the blueprint to your success as a speaker, your success as a presenter. And I would have to bring these people in and allow them allow them the freedom to be themselves.
Yes.
And that's when they started booking. It wasn't when they were coming in doing everything what they thought was going to be perfect. And I went through the same recovery myself, so I'm a little allergic to it. I'm a little biased. But to look back and see what people had done as far as the selling from the stage, taking on those other personalities that were not their personalities, and realizing that at some point, maybe like you were saying before the pandemic, that started to kind of drift away.
Yes, I think it did. I think there was a beginning to be a shift, and I think for our speaker brothers, we're both public speakers. We both use the stage many different ways, but I think there was a shift of camps of, we're gonna be big and we're gonna be rock stars and we're gonna like wow people. And then there was a beginning shift of people saying, you know what? I just want to get on stage and tell them the truth and share my heart. And I think there was a little division happening between which way we're going to go.
I think that was the disruptor. I think I don't know who we can credit for it, but I think somebody came along and it was a disruptor. And all of a sudden, and I know for me, I didn't like the feel of selling. I didn't like the feel of having people kind of jump in and want their affiliate chunk. And I really didn't like, I went this whole way. I had my own stage and I had people on my stage.
Yes.
I did that whole thing. And live events, 3 days, tons of stress. And for the most part, I don't regret doing it, but it was so difficult when I would have people on my stage that didn't deliver what they sold. And that was the beginning of the end. That's when I was like, you know what? That's what authenticity is not. When you get up and you sell something that you can't deliver, that has no value, or you leave people up in the air after they've given you money. and my name is associated with you. That was when I took down all of the aspirations of having this big, wow, 3-day thing and just started speaking. That was what happened for me. And I think that happened for a few other people as well, where I just went, I don't want to be responsible for anybody's experience except for the one that I bring.
So let me say this word and I'll explain it, but I'll come back. But the word access. We
Mhm.
got access during pandemic to rock stars playing acoustic guitar and singing to their
Intimate.
dog, right?
Yes.
We got access to people walking and talking with their husband or wife that we'd never seen on camera.
Right.
We got access and we began to hear and see a different form of the stars, the celebrities, the authors, the speakers. And again, that access, I think people were like, I think I finally understand you. And I don't think we can go back from it. I really don't think that access, when I say the word access to you, what does it mean to you, Sandra? Well, what is access as a speaker, actress, performer?
Access means two things to me, honestly. Access means when you build the relationships, which, is a big part of everything that I teach, relationship building. When you build the relationships, you then have access when it's a trusted relationship. I mean, not just, hey, I have you in my phone book, I mean, like literally when it's a trusted relationship that you can call, they pick up the phone, they will help you, whatever you need. That is access to them and all of the people that they can afford to. I got an introduction today to somebody that I am actually really nervous to talk to. And it came because a mentor of mine said, "Would you like access to this person?" I'm like, yeah, and there's that person for every one of us, I'm sure. But that's one aspect of access. The other is what you're referring to, which is getting to see behind the curtain and realizing, the thing that sold some of the sleazy magazines were like, I think, who was it? It might have even been, no, it wasn't In Style. I'm trying to think it was Star Magazine or something. They had a section that said, the stars are just like us. And they would have pictures of the stars like carrying grocery bags and their kid on their hip, and, spilling their coffee on themselves. And you're like, oh my gosh, look, they're human. Well, we really got a share of that
Yes.
in the pandemic, that every celebrity in any field, whether it's TV, athletes, even the industries that we're in, there are celebrities within our own industries, and we're on Zoom calls with them, and we see all of that behind the curtain. So once you see behind the curtain, you don't want to go back out front and pretend like you haven't seen it.
Well, Dan chimed in already. Dan Goodwin is a friend of ours. Dan said, "Hey, I totally agree with you." Lewis is dropping in. He's talking about access and quality of content. Yes, yes, yes. This is what the shift is all about.
Yes.
It's like when you watch one of my all-time favorite movies, Lord of the Rings. But I buy the deluxe pack with all the behind the scenes thing. I want to know about what a workshop. I want to know about the stunt people. I want to know about all this. And when you get hooked on that and you get it like we have now,
Yeah.
we have to keep driving the bus that way, because if you turn it away, they will turn away. So pandemic also brought out smaller venues. We learned that we could not have 2, 3, 5,000 people come to a convention for a weekend. We learned that the rooms are going to be limited capacity. So even our presentation, even the way we come off on stage,
Yes.
had to adapt.
Had to change.
And that's been a hard one for the event runners, because they've told me, we don't know what to do with this new intimacy kind of 500, 300 people thing. And the speakers are like, I used to project. I'd be Mr. Drama, because the Jumbotron would cover the 3,000 person room.
And
Now it's
much.
like, yeah. And then now
Yeah.
it's like, I've got to sit on a stool and feel like I'm
Yes.
talking to you in my backyard.
Yes, absolutely. That's 100% it. And here's the thing that I think is interesting. It's scary.
Yes.
It's scary to a lot of people because they can't hide behind the big persona and all of the action and all of the pizzazz and stuff maybe that they used to have. They have to actually sit down on a stool and talk like they're in their backyard, right? Or in their living room.
Right.
And that's vulnerable. That's very scary for a lot of people. That was the transition that I had, going from being an actress to being a speaker and having my own voice. I was borrowing fake people, characters to hide behind. And that felt good. Putting me out by myself in front of an audience with a microphone the first time, I literally blacked out. I mean, that is a very scary transition. And even if you're an experienced speaker, to take that vulnerability and crank it up to the point that it may be cranked up for them now, that requires a little bravery to be able to sit there and have a serious conversation that's real.
So your transition, and I want to dig into this just a little bit here, if you don't mind, because your transition from actors, people that may not understand, it's cut, stop, cut, stop, cut, stop, move over here, relight. 2 hours later, you're back in the same scene at a
Yeah.
different angle, cut, stop, cut, stop. But when you're on stage, it's a unscripted, sometimes scripted perform. You go. And now the crowd is literally, and I've had this, and I've always done this with myself. I've always loved when I ask a question, it's not a theoretical question. I literally am saying, someone's screaming out, someone respond. More and more of us are going that direction.
Yes.
So it's not like your TV time of cut, stop, get it right. It's whatever happens, happens next. And that had to be a hard shift.
Yeah.
And now all of us are going through that same hardship together. What would you say to people that are literally not sure where they present, how they speak, how they show up? What would you say to them?
Well, I'll tell you this. Let's go back to an observation. Okay. When the CEO that I mentioned, a Hall of Fame speaker, sat with me and unsolicited, and he didn't do this just once. They actually repeated the conversation a second time when I sat with him. So it really affected the two of them sitting in 3 conferences and seeing the handful of speakers that did this. And you know what they described? The way it used to be. They described the way it used to be. So there's a handful of people trying to do the disruption back the other way, and it's backfiring. Because here it is, he's a Hall of Fame speaker, and he's going, they're up there, and he's giving the whole like, oh, here's my sob story. Let me start selling you immediately when I get up there, and I'm going to sell you into a bunch of stuff that I have no right to sell you. And they were just burning up. Like they thought it was rude. They thought that it was out of integrity. And I don't know who these speakers were. I didn't ask. But it was interesting because they said there's a handful of them, and I guarantee they will never hire them and they'll never forget them. But I think that that is why they noticed them, and it was not in a good way, because we are looking for that real connection. And you did mention, but I have a piece of what I do. If anybody looks me up on LinkedIn or on my website, you're going to see horses all over it and go, what the heck is this all about? So I incorporated a love of mine, which is love of animals and nature and horses in particular. And I work with people on communication in a very obviously nature-based, natural way. And so I bring in leaders from all different industries and their organizations. And I have them basically work on communication and leadership, body language, energy, all of that, really down to basics, and talk about feeling vulnerable. I mean, brutal feedback from a 2,000 or 1,200 pound animal, but they learn right there and then what their energy and what their truthfulness does, because nature, which is represented in the horse, will walk away if you are inauthentic. If you pretend, that horse is like, yeah, I don't trust you, and they walk off. What audiences do, yeah, I don't trust you, and they click off.
Yes.
Same thing. So when people realize that, they change the way they're being. They change the way they're acting, but they mostly change the way they're being. And I think I have seen some people in that transition become very brave and very grounded in how they're moving into their leadership roles. And if they're speakers, they're going to take that to the stage as well.
So Lewis is chiming in, and he's going exactly where the next part of this was going to go. And Lewis, so great to have you with us tonight. And again, please keep the comments of the question coming in. But storytelling in a large audience, you can get away with a quick little story, a high energy. You can get a quick little laugh. However, when you are in more intimate, they want to feel it, sense it, taste it. It's more of a sensory story, not just a quick story. You want to pull them into the element. And I've gone to the edge of the stage. I've sat on the edge of the stage to make it feel like I'm literally sitting down with you talking.
Yes.
I've walked through the crowd. I've broken the glass.
Yes.
People are screaming for that now. Literally, if you just tell the story and move on to your next 5 points, it has no value. But like Lewis's point, it's the deep communication. They hear your heart. They feel your angst. They can be in the moment with you. And the better you learn the storytelling, the more everything comes alive. It's much more visceral for everybody. So in these more intimate settings, you can get away with a lot of intimate storytelling,
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
you have to break the mold of what you're used to by standing back, and you got to get right in there with them.
And I want to encourage you too that it's not just, yes, we may have smaller venues where this is appropriate. I also think that you can sit down on a stage in a conference room of 2,000 people and bring it down to that. If you are skilled enough, you can bring it down into a really personal conversation with everyone that is sitting in that audience. So I know that Lewis said, he's the one that brought up about the storytelling.
Yeah.
And what I like to say to my clients, especially lately, I've been saying, you need to take them out of the room. You need to take them out of the room for the
Yes.
story.
Yes. So to
And
the farm, to the ranch, to whatever, and you have to paint the picture and slow down.
yeah, yeah. So that they actually go there. And that's when that connection, especially if it's a story that involves you. I mean, a story about a client is one thing, but if you share a story personally that's like, this is what it was like for me, you tell it in present tense. So I am walking down the hall, or I am standing on the edge of the cliff, and they're right there with you.
Yes.
That is visceral. And that is what people are really wanting, I think. As long as it's coming from a sincere place. If it's reading as if it's rehearsed, then obviously that's not what
Right.
it's going to be. It's got to be a true moment of vulnerability, I guess you could say. And I think it was Jan, right?
Jan was just talking about the vulnerability moment. She goes, "This is requiring more vulnerability," and there is. And I've had conversations with well-known speakers that have said this is a struggle because I'm used to being able to tell the story and get away from it and not bring my soul into it. This vulnerability is requiring more out of us. And
Yes.
here it is again. This is David coming in now with the vulnerability. Here we go. Is this whole it is the key to
Yeah.
storytelling. You can tell a story, and you have some that are probably home runs. You're going to pull them out. You coach people on how they'll have that home run talk, but the story's got to come alive every time.
Yeah.
A little bit different, a different tone flux, a different reaction, a different facial movement, and it's not even like you plan it, but you really live this
The
again, and
moment.
it is vulnerable when you relive it, and you have a mic in front of you, and you go, "Bleh."
Yeah. And there is that moment where you go, I don't know if this is gonna go. I think we've all had that, like, I'm gonna tell this story, but I don't know if it's gonna land. And
Right.
especially when you try the story the first time. I remember the first time that I had given, somebody gave me permission to tell a piece of my story that I had been holding back. And she learned it, and she was a speaker coach, and she came up and as a friend, she's like, you need to tell that. I'm like, oh no, no, that's horrifying. No, but a thousand reasons went through my head, a thousand horrible responses of what people would do. And the interesting thing is, as some of you probably experienced if you're speakers, when you share that thing that you were so afraid to share, suddenly you attract the people that you really are there to help. I had so many people walk up to me after I took that one little, put my toe in the water of telling that little bit of my story. I'm much freer now. I don't care so much anymore. But that one time when I just like gave it a shot and I realized how many people came up and said, oh my gosh, I had the same experience. I had the same thing happen to me. And that was when like, all right, that's where I got the courage to continue to go down that path. Right. So it does take a little bravery.
Well, and Daniel is with us tonight. Good to see you tonight, our friend. Again, he is an author, and this whole idea of writing the story, and yes, you rehearse it, you craft it. But let me tell you, folks, I have go-to stories about my stutter and overcoming the stutter and things like that. It's never the same twice. It's not a pat layout that I know we're going to take off and know we're going to land, because I do relive the
Yeah.
feelings, the ridicule, the laughter when I tell it, and I never want to lose that. And that's what people are trying to avoid, the emotional recall, because
Yeah.
it is a smaller, more intimate crowd. You cannot fake it. When you tear up, they'll tell if it's real or not. As an actress, you know that. You know
Oh,
when you can pull the tear up, or
yeah.
you can know when you're in the moment and everyone goes, "Oh wow, I'm feeling it with you." That's what people want. So you can't overproduce, polish, practice. You have to learn
No.
to live in the morning, which is it's theater.
Yes.
It goes back to live Broadway theater and stuff.
It
You
does.
know
But
what you're
there's
going to
also,
present.
to protect ourselves as speakers, there has to be that element of control, that emotional regulation. Because I've
Yeah.
had people as clients, and probably you too, that have come in with a story that they can't tell just yet because they
No.
can't get through it.
Right.
And So learning how to regulate through that before you get out there. So there's a line, of course, when it comes down to being vulnerable and being in control. Like you still have to have that sense of like, okay, I'm going to tell this story and not lose it completely, because the audience will then go to a different state of mind, and that's not where you want to have them. Can I point out something that somebody gave here
Yeah.
earlier? It might have been Jan, that, and I had mentioned this to you before when we were talking about doing this show, that I think that one of the reasons that like people are like, what is this shift actually from? Partly from the pandemic and having the veil pulled away and seeing behind the curtain and wanting to know what the real story is. But I think there's also so much going on, and she referred to the news and this feeling of overwhelm and darkness that is around so many. And if you really want to go into that, I mean, you look at this scary statistics of even teen and now kids suicide, right? A friend of ours that we both know is just enrolling me in a new campaign to try to help prevent children from killing themselves. There's a lot of darkness out there. We've got war, we've got recession here in the United States. We've got a lot of things that can really have people feel like there is no light. If you show up as a light and somebody, they're looking for light, they're looking for somebody they can trust. And I mean, I am. You probably are. I mean,
Yes.
We don't trust the media anymore. We don't trust a lot of our leaders in DC. I mean, you know, we want to, but we've been burned. And so I think we are really actively looking for somebody that will be truthful. And if you are able to go to that space and have a real conversation and connect with people in vulnerable state and be, you know, to the point that you can actually lift somebody up, they will go there with you and they are hungry for it. I think that's another big reason why people are, you know, audiences are really looking for something that is true.
Oh yeah, totally agree. Especially the climate here in the States, the news cycle, the politicians have destroyed the authentic. We both coach sound bites. They are important to have good sound bites, but sometimes the magic is the sound bite doesn't land, but something else magical comes out of you. This is a lot more impromptu. So with some more time left that we have here to talk, I'm curious, what would be some insights, strategies that we could help our brothers and sisters, even the event planners don't know what to do with the small venue. They don't know what to do with the fact that instead of back row people, they're all right here. Just like we found out, this was one of the first thing I learned about pandemic and the Zoom and the virtual for everyone was there's no back seats.
Yeah.
There's no one blocking your view. There's no pole in the way. You are there were no back seats. And people went like, I am literally seeing you face to face. Yeah, there's other people in this cube, but I'm seeing you face to face, up close and personal. So what can event runners, what can we do to help the switch happen? Because we're not going back and we have to embrace this to succeed. Like you said earlier, if we don't, they will turn us off and we are not getting them back.
Well, it's going to sound like I'm plugging you here, Rich, but one of the first things that I would say to event planners is it may be a smaller venue, but you can reach a lot more people via streaming. And there are a lot more people that are willing to do that. I mean, I go up to Dallas. I live in Austin, Texas, and I drive up to Dallas at least once a month for events. And they are still doing hybrid events. And I know people that are within driving distance, like I'm within driving distance, but in Texas terms, that's 4 hours. So it's like, I mean, like within a day's drive, you know, an hour's drive.
The country of Texas. That's what we're talking about. The country of Texas.
The country of Texas, exactly. So they actually prefer to pipe in virtually rather than show up in person. Now, I actually would say showing up in person is so much more rich. We're talking about connection. We're talking about being, you know, no bad seats. Showing up in person is the way to do it. But people are now really comfortable with sitting at home, having their coffee, their glass of wine, depending on what time of the day or night it is that you're doing your presentation. And you may have a lot wider audience, a lot wider reach than you could have ever had when it was just live. So you can go from doing a 2,000 person conference to doing a, you know, 50,000 person audience.
Well, that's where Daniel's going right here. Daniel's asking the question, what type of venue are you looking for? Because now we all have a stage. Yes. No one has to travel, do anything. You all have a stage. Now it depends on what you're going to do with the stage, but we do have it. So Dan's question here is very good. What type of venue are you looking for? And you think it's only the 3,000 person crowd that can grow your brand, sell your books, elevate you? No. Some of the best musical concerts I've seen are house musical concerts where the guys just come on in. It's 15 of your friends and neighbors in the backyard, maybe in the living room. And they said, we're just going to have a casual time. Ask me to sing a song. I'll tell you a story. And they're unplugged in a small venue. I have friends in Nashville. They said, I'll take that concert over the mega stage
any day. Any day. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Rich, what would you suggest to people that are thinking about being maybe a little bit more intimate in their presentations?
One of it is you do have to go back to the first person conversation that you touched on. Your communication language needs to change. It's I, it's you. You may not want to give full names. You may want to change the addresses and things, but you do want to be as real as you can. Steve and I can remember doing this with Steve. You want to be as personal in your storytelling because we've been taught to play it safe, speak in generalities. But when you can bring more of the I and you, oh, wow. I've got a talk that I do that I talk about the weight that we incur in life, the burdens, the trash, the pains. I literally will put a backpack on, 50 pounds of backpack, and I'll talk for 40 minutes. I'll go down the audience and I'll stop and say, hey, you want to pull out a rock? Now I've talked about pain, struggles, all sorts of hardships. And every time it happened, they're literally now in the moment with me, pulling off the rock out of there, and they hold it. And I just go on and I keep talking with the mic on, go to somebody else. So they're left with this rock.
Yeah.
They're now thinking about their life, their family, their marriage. And I go around until the backpack's empty. And everyone's got rocks now. And I go on stage and I talk about, I felt the weight for 40 minutes. I feel like I'm going to fly off the stage right now. I'll be like, let go of my junk. And I got real with you. And people are like bawling, they're in it. And now they have something to remember of the intimacy. You can do that in a lot of different ways now to be that raw with people. And they're ready to receive it. They're actually ready to be in the moment with you.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned something once before about questions to the audience. And,
Yes.
I said this to someone just the other day, new client that's starting, and I said, don't worry, I'm not going to give you the questions that you've seen before. Like, with all due respect, is that a yes or yes? Like, you're not actually waiting for an answer. It's a total, yelling to the air, expecting the audience to react in a
Yes.
universal way. They really want somebody to look and go, how many people understand that? I actually will stop and, when I'm talking about personal goals, I'll stop and I'll ask somebody. Sometimes the question is really personal. What were you doing at 6 years old that made time stand still? And at first it's silent. I go, come on, don't be afraid. I just really want to know. Like, what were you doing? Were you playing, were you playing with Barbies? And then the hands start going up and then I can't stop them. Right. But, and it's great because that's what you said, like, okay, who knows where this is going to go? It's live. Let's just happen. And it's beautiful because you see these people light up. You see what their actual design is, how they actually light up. And they're talking about something that they love to do as a kid. And said, are you doing any version of that now in what you do for a living? And the ones that were the happiest, of course, they were. The ones that got kind of sad were not. And so that was when we did a little hot seat coaching and said, find a way to incorporate singing into your life, or join the choir, whatever it was that lit them up. But in that moment, when you're actually engaging somebody in a conversation, it's not just that one person in the audience that you're getting that true reaction from and you're talking to, that you've asked an actual question to, and you wait for the answer, but everybody around them feels like they are seen and heard at the same time. So
Yes.
to practice this, go through your grocery line. And when the guy or the woman that's checking you out at the grocery store goes, how are you doing today? Instead of going, fine, how are you? And not even looking at them, go, fine, how are you doing? And actually look at them and wait for an answer.
Eyeball to eyeball, which is what, Dan was saying. We learned through the pandemic that we can connect to the screen because we are eyeball to eyeball right here. And Dan's absolutely right. People were not ready for that. And the intimacy factor and the depth got way deeper. Also, David's chiming in. People are tired of the BS. They are tired of, let's cover it up, let's sweep it away. I talk about rip out the mask and let's get real. It scares the daylights out of people. Now, one way to do this, and again, I'm thinking both live audience with small audiences, you literally can say, got a question, here's my cell phone. And send me a text right here live on stage. And you literally, it's an interactive prop, but now you really got personal. You gave them your stinking telephone number. Oh my goodness, why would you dare do that? And you literally take it. You don't have someone else do it. You literally take it yourself right there live on stage, and people feel like, oh, thank you
Yeah.
for being that real with me right here in the moment. There are some new techniques that we have never done that we are just beginning to see the intimacy factor and the depth can go deeper and deeper. And you will win the hearts and the minds and the fans because they're going to stick with you as you keep exploring this new frontier that we got to get into, I think.
I truly think it's the trust factor. It's the trust factor that we are searching for. And doing a well choreographed routine up on stage of any size is just not where people are. I acknowledge people that have done that in the past. I remember seeing that in the past. Like, I saw some crazy stuff and characters that people put on. And I mean, if they are in edutainment where they are actually able to
Yeah.
do these things and that's part of their act, that's great. But I mean, I saw people that were trying to be motivational speakers that were putting on characters, and it just, that would never fly at this point. I just don't think it would.
Jan wants to know can I never have your number now?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Rich.
But hey, that's part of the fun of this, though, is that here, right now, in these moments, we can do things like never before. So this is the number right there, everybody. Okay. I'm telling you,
Took the challenge. You took
this
the
is
challenge.
what we can now do. And this is, again, for those that are struggling with this transition, some people are running ahead, embracing this and thinking, I can do something so far out of the box.
Yeah.
People will come to. Think about it this way. I am not the biggest reality TV show fan in the world, by none any. I'm tired of seeing these scientific experiments played on everyone's TV show, okay? Right now with the writer's strike and director's strike, we're going to see more of these forever right now.
Yeah. The
But-
petri dish of human nature. Great.
But the one thing we did learn is people did want to see you fall. They did want to see you get back up. They did want to see you stumble. There's something even in that, as much as it's been overused now, there's something that should be telling us if people are paying and spending advertising dollars and watching these Big Brothers and all the other shows, maybe we as speakers, influencers, leaders, TV people, maybe we should be paying attention.
Pick up on that.
Bringing that alive in how we perform ourselves and communicate ourselves.
So true. So true. Yeah. I'm taking the cues from pop culture.
So I'm just making sure we're not missing. Lewis is on there. Not just trust, but interacting. Yes, it is the two-way conversation now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many different ways to do that. I mean, I've got a roadcaster. I could take your phone calls and we could pump them in right here. Haven't done it yet, but Rock the Stage is thinking about those things. We really could have you say, dial the number, and I could bring Jan up or bring Lewis up and say, hey, Lewis, you're with us tonight. And we could have that because Restream doesn't allow that physical face thing, but the chat's alive, but we can bring you audio right in. There's so many new ways to have it be in the moment and be real.
And what's on the forefront is changing all the time. I mean, that's
Yes.
that's your expertise. There's one thing that maybe we should address because people will say, I'm afraid to be vulnerable. I'm afraid to tell the story that, is behind maybe the story they told was at the 30,000 foot level.
Yeah.
And where we really want to be is at like the 1,000 foot level, right? We don't need to be actually in the grind with you, but we want to get that feeling of what it was like. Yeah. Whatever thing was that you overcame. And people are hesitating, go, well, what if? What are the what ifs, Rich? Like, what if I get persecuted? What if people make fun of me? What if it falls flat? What do you say to that fear, which is, I'm sure, is in some people right now?
Number one, I say own it. Admit it. In fact, I just got a text from Hugh Ballou. Hugh, great job, everybody. Right there in the moment. He's just saying good job. He's enjoying it. But he just wanted to prove he could do it. I do think we have to own it, that some of this vulnerability will be scary. I went through a divorce years ago now, but I was not ready to put that on the stage to protect my kids because we did have an amazing family, the stories, the memories, everything. There were so many reasons why not to put that out. And at the same time, when it finally came at the point where we could put it into the narrative and I could share it with not getting crazy or disrupting my children and other things, it was a big lump in the throat the first time I said, here's the pain of a divorce. Here's the pain of a father missing a Christmas, an Easter, a graduation. The first time you do it, it is going to be a big gulp.
Yeah.
But like anything else, you got to take off the Band-Aid sometime and go for it. And if you've gone through any of this, if you know what it's like to do that vulnerable thing, the next time is easier and easier. And again, your followers, your fans, your readers, they will love you even more.
There is, when you start to tell a story and you say, I haven't told this before, so give me I might need a moment. It will be silent. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes, it will be. Yeah.
You'll have everybody. And I'm not saying that you should do that as a manipulative move, but I'm just saying that, like you said, own it. You say, I don't know if I can get through this story, but I feel like somebody here needs to hear it. And you share that story. But you say, I need a moment. You're going to have everybody there. And like I said, there's that balance. You don't want to be falling apart. But it's okay to just say, first time I'm telling this may not be so comfortable for me.
Well, and again, usually I'll pull up a stool and I'll do something like that. Lisa's chiming in here. She's been doing video for a long time, but yes, the power of intimacy through a video, even if it's pre-recorded, you can still bring the intimacy alive. I mean, TikTok has exploded. Instagram now with the reels. So people dig that. It's not that they're overly produced. They're very simple. Hi. I mean, I just did one the other day down at the Metro, hanging out in the Metro station. NOAA weather is just around the corner. So I went around the NOAA weather, sat by NOAA weather, and did a live. People are clicking and going crazy. I didn't know NOAA weather was around there. Oh my goodness. This is where you can do it through video. There's so many different ways. You are not limited. In fact, I think in some ways we have more opportunities to be more authentic because there's more venues and vehicles. You're not just limited to the big stage where we started the conversation tonight. It used to be the big bank, the big stage, or nothing else. We have many, many ways to do this. And it's up to you to figure out what's going to work for you, for your personality, for your brand, for how you best do it.
Yeah. It was interesting. I had a gentleman today that I spoke with, and he 2 very successful companies, media related. And he said, I'm getting the feeling that I should put my own brand out there, but I'm afraid, he was afraid of how to do that and keep everything in alignment. I go, you're keeping it in alignment. And he told me some things about himself that were, his personal life, which were amazing. And rather, I would say to most people would seem exotic and aspirational. The guy says his life was extraordinary. And what he had accomplished personally was extraordinary. And I was like, that is what you need to talk about. And even though he didn't tell me that he had been tortured as a child or any of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It was really, personality building, character building stuff that he had experienced growing up, but he was so worldly from it. He had accomplished so many things because of the skills that he had to learn and the way he grew up. He still hesitated, like, well, I don't know if people want to actually know that. And I'm like, that is considered so exotic. Like sometimes what is so close to us, we don't even realize is so amazing for other people to experience. And so, that's something to consider as well.
No, and that's a great point to kind of land the plane on here tonight, because for us, we're aware of our pain, our angst. The stories have always been in our head. It's been a part of our lives. We're thinking like, they already know that, or they don't care, or they won't understand. I spoke at a convention, and they asked me to do my stutter the stage talk, and they really didn't know anything about my stutter. Nobody did. So I do my stutter the stage talk, and I explain some of the science, some of the struggles. I do a lot of my own personal story. I had so many people come up to me, Sandra, and say, you never stuttered once on stage. You don't stutter. That's a bunch of crap. I said, oh, no. I just have learned how to do this the whole time. I am editing my talk. I am making it up. My stutter is still very strong. And when I talk to my mother, she stutters. My friends all know when I talk to mom, because this tongue doesn't work as well after I talk to my mom. And it's true. So people now understand and they like that they hear about that. The professional broadcaster, the guy on TV,
Yeah.
he can't speak. Hey, we all blow it, people. We all blow it. But the fact is, the intimacy factor now allows us to tell that in a way that people can get it and they actually identify with you more by putting those cards on the table.
Okay, so Daniel's like, Rich and Sandra for president 2024. Well, we get the trust vote out of what I've seen so far. So maybe.
By the way, Sandra Dee Robinson, again, she's a charisma coach. She's been an actress. I actually went back, true confession, and then we'll kind of wind this down. But I went back and I watched her on Criminal Minds.
Oh, was
One of my
that
all-time favorite shows.
where they ripped my face off? Is that the one? Yeah, I died a lot of really exotic ways on these shows.
Sandra Dee Robinson, again, she does have a newsletter. So tell us, what's the newsletter about and how can we better connect with you?
You know, talk about being vulnerable. This I will be, because this is our topic, I will tell you, this was a really scary thing for me to do. So I ended up connecting with an amazing coach. His name is Kevin Friedberg. Give him a shout out. And he's like, you should do a newsletter. And I'm like, yeah, I used to think I was okay at writing, but I don't think I am anymore. And he kind of, you know, held my hand, kicked my butt to get me to write a bi-weekly newsletter. And it has totally changed, number one, what I know about my community, because I ask for responses.
Yes.
And people respond back. And when it hits them, and sometimes I'll be honest, I set a timer. I just took it away. I usually have it here. I set a timer for 25 minutes. I write my newsletter, even if it's not perfect or I want to sit there and massage it and freak out over it. I hit send and I try to forget about it. That's what we're talking about being vulnerable, because most of the time these newsletters are my personal experience. It's something that I have overcome or I'm seeing somebody overcome at the moment. And they're pretty real, you know? And so twice a week I put these things out and I'm getting such amazing responses, and not like, Sandy, you're so great, but comments like, you're inside my head. Thank you so much. This was so timely. I really needed to hear this today. And that's all I need to keep going. And yeah, I have a coach that says your writing is really good, and that's lovely. And I have a new book, you know, thing coming out. So that's great. I think my confidence has increased. And so I'm glad that I took this leap of faith, this vulnerable step. And I'm learning so much. And I think that's what's going to happen when people let themselves be a little more vulnerable up on stage, wherever that stage is, virtual or real. And you will learn more about your audience. And that relationship that you build with them will be that much richer. So there you go.
Hit the QR code, subscribe, and it does have tips and tricks, but it does have her personal journey in it. With, again, it's another new way that we can communicate together. It's another new way that we can share and put it out there that people can digest, because people are trying to figure out, as we discussed at the very beginning here tonight, we're trying to figure out this new journey of the intimacy factor of the stage.
Yeah.
And the stage now is...
We're trying to figure out how to be human on a stage.
Right. Which always has lights, cameras, big screen, small screen. There's always the new media side is always integrated with this now, but there's also a desire to just keep it real.
So true.
Thank you, Sandra Dee Robinson, for joining us tonight. Thank you for being a part of this special conversation. Again, she will be around. She's now the officially designated most reoccurring guest here. We have a seal of approval from Rock the Stage Media. Sandra Dee Robinson. Hey, by the way, again, everybody, we do this every single week, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And we are going to be making some changes at Rock the Stage. We are going to keep you informed of that. But we would like to make it easier for you to find us, to listen, to get the good content. And we're going international. We are lining up international guests from Australia to the UK, some other countries that are already in the pipeline as well. And we are going to take this global, which is fun, as we said, partly afraid, partly scary, because you don't know what's going to happen when you start playing in a new field like this. But that's part of the direction of what Rock the Stage wants to do, to help more people, once again, shine on camera, shine on stage, and elevate you and your personal brand. That's going to do it for this week. I'm the Trigger, Rich Bontrager. Thanks once again for Sandra Dee Robinson, and I promise you she will be back again with us. And Jan, you get the final word one more time. Thank you very much for joining us here, Jan, and everybody else. We'll We'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Eastern time for How the Rock the Stage show.